Hey there, it's Chris, and welcome back to week 6 of the Spartan Ultra Training Plan, where it's January. We made it. Look behind me, all that Christmas stuff, it's down. It is now the new year, 2026. We are now laser focused on what's going to come up in the future. Now, this is kind of an exciting video because we have a lot of stuff I want to cover. We are changing the way we're training stuff right now, but in the spirit of the new year, this is actually being recorded on New Year's Day. So in the spirit of that, I want to cover real quick first some ways we can help ourselves keep our resolutions, whether it be fitness or otherwise, and stay on track during these long things. We have, like I said, this is 6 weeks down. We still have another 16 weeks to go on this before the thing. So how do we kind of keep ourselves on track? And then after we go over that discussion, which shouldn't take too long, I want to go over how our training is actually going to change from what we've been doing to what we have. Because I just finished, because when we started, we'd had our kind of 2 weeks of kind of quicker, short workouts to get the heart rate going. And we've now just finished the 3 weeks we've had of the zone, purely the zone 2 stuff. And we're going to now transfer into doing more intense work and adding more distance as we go. So, but first, how do we kind of keep ourselves on track for these long things? How do we stay interested for the 4 or 5 months that we have to do these things? And to start with, I have 2 general methods that I know of you can use. And I'm actually going to start this off with a little bit of a story. It will lead into the whole thing. I'm going to try to keep this quick. But a couple years ago, I was back in high school. I was running usually around 18-minute, whatever, 5Ks. And since then, I've never been able to break a 20-minute 5K. So a couple years ago, I was close. I was like at a 2015 to 2020. And I was going into like a local race kind of right near me. And it was one of those terrible days. It was like near end of April kind of thing, or early May, whenever it was, kind of later in the spring. It was like 50 degrees. It was cold for that time of year. It was downpouring. It was like buckets downpouring. It was just a miserable day to be out there. But I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to try as hard as I can. I want to get this 20-minute mile, this 20-minute 5K. We're going to do this. And it was one of those runs where just right off the bat, you just feel terrible. The weather wasn't helping. Just felt absolutely miserable out there. But there were 2 people in front of me. There was a father and a daughter. And apparently the daughter was probably kind of high schoolish age. And I guess her goal was also to run a 20-minute 5K. And the father, who was actually probably 10 years older than me, he was leading her the entire way. He was like kind of giving motivational talking. He was doing whatever he could to help her get that. And I was feeling terrible, so I was kind of behind them a little bit, but just kind of listening to them go through, following kind of the father, trying to lead his daughter through the thing. He helped keep me honest in my attempt. It was one of those days where it would have been super easy to say, I'm tired, I feel terrible, this is just one of those days, and fall back, and I would have like all the excuses in the world not to attempt to go as fast as I was. But just listening to them kind of go through helped pull me along and go as fast as I did. I wound up just missing. I think I had like a 20:05 or something. It was something that was really close. I just kind of missed. I got it later. But he kept me honest throughout the race. So one of the ways we can keep these resolutions that we may have, whether it's fitness-wise or whether it's kind of anything we want, is to find somebody else around who's also interested in what we're doing. And with an extra person around, they can help carry you over the line on those days where it might, like this past week, where it's been like 20 degrees outside, wind chills down like single digits. Somebody to get there to kind of help pull you through those days when you really don't want to walk out that door and do something. Those days where you really don't want to go to the gym, you can find somebody else to help bring you through those things. And just having somebody else with you, whether it's a husband, wife, friend, anybody out there who can help bring you through these kind of tougher times, to keep you honest with hitting the goals that you set. If you look back at the session 1 I had here on the goal setting, somebody can keep you honest in terms of trying to hit those goals of yours on those days where it's going to be miserable out there. That can be really, really helpful for doing it. That said, if you don't have somebody near you who's interested in the stuff you're interested in, we're not all the same. People around me, they could care less, or they have a hard time caring less about any of the running stuff and whatever I do. They have their own interests. We all have our own interests. So someone like me who kind of does this on their own, I tend to, the second method, which works really well for me, is anytime I do a workout or every single day, I'll just go on and write down what I've done. So this is going to be a little overwhelming at first. I pop this thing up here, but whoop, if we take off the webcam real quick, for me and my running stuff, I will write down every workout I do throughout the entire sessions I do this. This is back in the 2021 season. And going from left to right, I color code everything. Right now, this is just the running stuff on here. I'll have biking as different color codes. I'll now color code between zone 2 and regulars kind of going out, running as fast as I can kind of runs. I'll have different ones for if I'm gonna do like trail runs or whatnot. But what I have on here is I'll have the type of workout, the date, the type of workout. I have how far I went for the runs, how long it took to do it, what was the average pace, what's my cumulative for the year. I then have what are my mile splits I have going through here, elevation, my weight, what was the weather through it, and then usually towards the back half of this I'll have like a brief description of what I actually did for each workout. And I've been doing this ever since 2015. I have been doing this for years, so I have spreadsheets after spreadsheets after spreadsheets of this, so I can always kind of compare myself to what I was like 10 years ago. I can see how I'm progressing, not progressing, and all of this. And just writing this out every day I do something, it really kind of helps keep you on track, especially during these really, really cold January kind of days, which kind of became December days this time. But we're heading into kind of statistically the worst time of year to be doing this, and it helps carry through those types. And the other thing on there, you notice I have the two colors on there. Let me pop off this real quick one more time. The two colors in yellow, those are record runs. And that's also really helpful for going forward is we have not just our big, I want this thing at the end of the work, I want the big event, the ultra at the end, that's all I'm looking forward to. That's not necessarily the full case. If you're trying to keep these like overarching resolutions that you may have, whether it could be a fitness thing, it could be a weight thing, it could be, if you're an introvert, just going out and meeting people, it could be writing, could be whatever it is you're interested in, set little mini goals along the way as well, and they can help serve as stepping stones to get to the bigger overarching goals you may have. So whenever I have these kind of spreadsheets against the side, those big yellow ones, every now and again I do go for like mini kind of records and various distances that I have. Although I'll be honest, it's been a couple years since I've set one. For some reason I was faster in my late 30s than I am now in my 40s. I don't know what happened, but apparently life is catching up a little bit. I'm not that far off, but it's getting harder to hit those records. But it is super helpful to have those things going out. At the same time, if you've, like, say, as I'm going to now transition into the next segment of workouts going forward, if you have fitness goals, say you want to like bench press like 300 pounds or something going before like the ultra comes up, and you have like those types of things, it's going to be good for you on that, but that type of goal is not gonna help in an ultra at all. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been focusing on the upper body stuff at all up to this point, and frankly, you don't, as long as you have efficiencies in doing a number of the obstacles, the upper body stuff isn't as necessary as you might think to prep for one of these. I'll be honest, ever since the Palmerton race, I pulled something in my shoulder, and since then I haven't been able to do a single pull-up until Christmas. Literally the week before Christmas, I finally did my first pull-up, which means I went into Killington without being able to do a single pull-up. I'll explain what happened to the shoulder. But I went into Killington without being able to even do a single pull-up. And do you know what that affected? 2 obstacles. I couldn't do Twister, and I couldn't do Olympus. And that was it. That's because I couldn't put lateral force on my arm. What ultimately I found out wound up happening after trying to stretch out every incorrect muscle, because I self-diagnose, which takes forever to find the right thing wrong and to do it that way. But I eventually found out that what had happened was my shoulder got impinged by my shoulder blade. So as soon as I started stretching out my shoulder blade earlier last month, all the problems seemed to like melt away. And now I can finally move around again. I can do stuff. So up to this point, I haven't done any upper body stuff. And I can finally now start to get on that track. So now that we spent the last 5 weeks prior to this kind of getting ourselves warmed up, getting the heart ready to go, getting everything kind of nice and neat. We don't need you in the background anymore. That just adds more stuff out here. Now it's time to finally start kind of escalating. If you want to, it's time to start maybe adding some upper body things in. But again, my focus is going to be more on, if you're doing strength training, more kind of runner-based strength training with maybe 4 upper body elements thrown into it. That would be kind of push-ups, pull-ups, dead hangs, and farmer's carries and farmer's lifts, those types of things. And those are really, at least to complete one of these types of races, those are really the only ones you kind of need as your core upper body things. So probably just a couple times a week, I'm now going to go down and use January just to kind of get my, just like I used December to get my legs and heart kind of started and prepped to get ready to do real workouts. I'm going to use January now, just kind of ease my way into working on those types of aspects, mostly getting grip. Grip is super helpful for anything. That's going to buy you time on the overhang stuff, if you're just pulling ropes and all that. Your grip is probably your biggest thing you want to work on, if anything. And the other ones I'm just kind of start doing like once or twice a week, get used to it. And then maybe come like February, March, actually start pushing the upper body a little bit more. But in terms of the legs, we've now finished we now have done the 3 weeks worth of the zone 2 stuff. And I don't know if you've been following along or not, but this past week, second half of this week now, like the last 2 or 3 runs, I feel like my times have started actually coming down a little bit. The mitochondria is starting to kind of catch in. Now, historically, I'll usually kind of start at a certain level. The first week is nice. The second week gets worse, which actually happened this time too, because now that I'm not pushing the heart, everything kind of contracted a little bit, so it got a little bit worse initially. And then we kind of slowly start getting faster. And then usually kind of around weeks between like 7 and 9 and that kind of 8-week stretch, like 2 months after I start. So I'm going to be looking kind of towards end of January. All of a sudden, times should just start dropping like crazy around that time. So I'm not expecting huge gains for another several weeks, but I am now starting on the right trajectory with the hope that, yeah, once the days start to get longer, once it starts to get a little warmer out there, we're going to be in great shape. That said, this coming week, I had said I was going to start doing the 80-20 plan, and I think I'm going to change that up just a little bit. If I have a different race I'm looking forward to in the future, I might jump right into 80-20. I think I'm going to start probably more around that, like, say 10 to 15% of the runs I'm doing this week will be in that zone 4, and like 85 to 90% will be in the zone 2. I'm going to kind of ease, just like I ease myself into running, I'm going to ease myself into the speed stuff. So I'm only going to dedicate maybe 3 or so miles this week towards speed. I'm going to do about 4 miles next week going towards speed, which I'll explain that one. That's going to be a whole special scenario I'm going to explain next week when we get to it. And this speed stuff I'm going to do is I'm probably going to do like either half mile or like 3/4 mile kind of speed events thrown into my weekday runs. And that's going to be ended by the weekend, where we get probably one of the most critical of the distance runs we're going to do. Between this 8-miler and the 10-miler, those are probably the 2 most important of the distance runs we're going to have for the entire segment here. In that, usually, I know Zotune kind of eases things out a bit, but if I'm like doing the Rudy kind of running, where I'm going to try as hard as I can every single run I do, like in previous years, usually there are 3 kind of roadblocks I'll hit on these types of runs. The first will come at 3 miles. Every once in a while, it's rare, like once or twice a season, like I said, your body will burn fats or it will burn glucose in order to produce the energy. Every once in a while, it's rare, like I said, but I feel like when I'm going out really hard, my body just doesn't transfer to the glucose. And if it's only burning off the fats and I'm like going a 7-minute mile, I will just absolutely slam into that wall at around the 5K mark and just have to stop. So the 5K is usually my first indication of whether or not it's going to be a good run or not. Usually around a 10K is where I'll start losing steam. Again, this isn't the zone 2, this is running just out flat, running in whatever speed I want to go. But usually I can start, so the 10K tends to be the second hit, the wall that can be hit. You just kind of go and you run out of energy and you start slowing down after that. And usually between like 8 and 9 miles, that kind of like 12 to 15K kind of range is the last of the walls I might hit. And that's where the legs start feeling weird things. They might start getting sore in weird places, either like the shins or like in the knee area. They'll start to feel it from like the pounding nonstop for like an hour plus worth of running to get to that point. And that's kind of the last hurdle we need to get over, because then once I get over that, adding distance is just adding time. After that, it doesn't make any difference anymore. As long as you keep nutrition up, you can just keep going. So trying to make it through this 8-mile run, and then in a couple weeks again, trying to make it through that 10-mile run, those are going to be the big hurdles. They're going to really tell me what kind of shape I'm in. Do I need to spend more time going a little and kind of building up to those? Do I hit it and just kind of go right through? So we're going to see how this works. Again, I'm going to be doing them generally slowly. I'm going to be doing my speed events during the week, so I'm still going to be doing those relatively slowly. But I'm going to be keeping an eye on my body on how it feels by the end of these kind of runs. That said, at this point, if you want to start moving into, and rather just have like, all my stuff has been road runs right now, if you want to start moving into, if you're not used to doing trail runs, now would be a time to maybe start introducing that, assuming it's safe. In my area, the trails I have around me are absolutely not safe. We have snow on the ground, it's cold, there's ice coming through. It is not a good time to be starting those things. But if you have the ability, now would be a good time. If you want to use those distance events to rather than run like an 8-mile or do like an 8-mile hike on hills or something that are near you that you have, that would be fantastic to do that as well. You can substitute these runs for hikes. Most of the race is going to be treated as like a hike anyway. A lot of those hills are going to be too steep to run. So getting correct form on that. So it doesn't matter if you're running, if you're hiking, if you're doing something, as long as you're trying to get these miles in and slowly build up what we can do. Again, my goal was to get to around a 20-mile run, or equivalent would be my big one at the end. And by doing this every other week, that's going to put that 20-miler or 60-mile bike ride, wherever it's going to wind up being, at the 3 weeks before the event. So it's kind of important to kind of not fall behind on these, but you can substitute other workouts for running if you need to. That said, if you have any kind of weaknesses you want to start ironing out, now's the time to start working on those. If you don't have grip strength, start working on that. If you don't have good calves or good kind of quads, hamstrings, start finding hills and start kind of easing your way into those. Use January to kind of ease your way into distance, and we can use January to kind of ease our way into starting some of these areas we might be weak on. You're going to know, odds are you've done these races before. You've done either like a super or a sprint or a beast or something. You know what your weaknesses are on those courses. So if you haven't started already, once or twice a week, just start doing something to aim yourself towards those weaknesses. For me personally, usually at around that half marathon mark in these races, my quads and my hamstrings, they just like turn to stone in the end. They take the hills and they get killed. So for me, this running and kind of getting time on the legs and ultimately going up and down the hills is going to be super critical, which is why I'm focusing on the zone 2, because that's going to break up the lactic acid, which is basically building up inside the muscles. So the zone 2 stuff is aimed towards fixing my own shortcomings that happen in these races. But if you have other ones that you've experienced before, now would be a time to start easing into actually addressing some of those issues. That said, going forward, if you have any specific obstacles or whatnot that you would like to have explained, how to do certain things, I know on the courses we always see people out there who have no idea how to do like Irish tables, don't know how to get over like 8-foot walls, don't know how to do whatever it is. I always hear banter on the course from people who have a hard time doing certain obstacles. You can put in the comments section, let me know, and I can turn 1 or 2 of those. I'm not going to build an Olympus thing, but I might be able to build like a replica thing of some of those, and I can try to demonstrate how to overcome some of these obstacles that can prove difficult for you or anybody else who are out there. I can turn it into a building project for the other side of this site. But yeah, let me know on some of those things. And once the weather improves, it may be like February or so before I get to it. But once the weather improves, I'd like, if you have anything you want to know about that, just let me know, and I can maybe do something to help get you through some of these things. But that's kind of where we are right now. Like I said, next week mileage is increasing again. I want to be up to around 23-ish or so miles with that 8-miler at the end. And again, I'm going to be keeping the shorter recovery runs are still going to be around that 3.25 miles or so for those. And the other 2 during the week are going to be kind of that mid-distance range, but they're going to have the speed elements thrown in to accommodate that. So that is where we are with this. And hopefully it gets a little bit warmer next week. I'm not going to lie, running when the wind chill is like 15 or below is super fun, especially when you're going into the wind. But it is what it is, and yeah, we're going to take it from there. I'm glad we made it through. We made it through December. We made it through the intro part, but no, now it's time to actually start. Now it's time to start actually focusing on what we need to do to get done for this race. And that's all I want to say here, and I will see you next time. And until then, enjoy.